So anyways, 2.7 is talking about ratios and proportions. These are things that I actually use in real life, and so and I need to take off that percents and percentages. I do want to talk about that at some point. I have a pretty neat math trick that you can use with it, but as far as today, I don't think it really applies to kind of what we need. So anyway, so what is a ratio? So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities using a quotient. So often we compare parts to parts, parts to whole, or wholes to wholes, and I'll kind of explain that as we kind of move along, but that's kind of the way that they're done. So they're written in three different ways. So probably the one that we kind of recognize the most is going to be this one in like what we call fraction form. But you can also write it with the word to, or some people use a colon, or yeah, that's a colon. Yeah. So anyways, those are kind of the three ways they're written. A lot of times today we're going to use what's called the fraction form. So it's the most common one. And then some examples are 3 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 3, 2 to 3, and 2 to 3. You read them the same exact way. But anyways, so this one, I just have a classroom example. I'm not going to do the teacher example as well. Just a heads up. So here, if we want, and it says it express fractions in the lowest terms. So what I'd love to do is write these all three ways, just to get a little bit of practice with it. So here we have 3 weeks to 3 weeks. So here we're comparing, I would say, wholes to wholes. And then here, because our weeks are the same in both this one and this one, we can just write it as 3 to 2 in colon form. We can write 3 to 2, or we can write it as 3 over 2. Pretty simple. Now, you have to be careful with here because I have 12 hours and 4 days. So what I would do is I would convert the 4 days to hours. Remember, there's 12 hours in a day. So I can also think of this as 12 hours. That's not even an H, sorry. To, I think, 48 hours. Okay. So then when we do that, if we write it in fraction form, kind of like we talked about last week with simplifying fractions, I have to think about what number goes into both these. Well, 12 is a even number. 48 is also even. So I'm going to divide both of these by 2. Start there. So I have 6 over 24, both even. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. So I have 3 over 12. And I don't know if you guys can recognize this, but actually 3 goes into both of those numbers. So I think my final answer is 1 to 4. So what that means is if we're looking at this ratio, 12 hours to 4 days, for every 1 hour that happens here, 4 hours happen there. So hopefully that makes sense. And it's just the 3 different ways and kind of what a ratio is. All right, so let's look at some story problems. When are we going to use these? Why are we doing this? I'm going to grab my calculator here because I can't do a lot of this stuff in my head. But anyways, the supermarket charges the following prices for pancake syrup. What size is the best buy? What is the unit price to the nearest thousandths for that size? Okay, so let's talk about what a unit price is. What the word unit means is 1. Okay, so here I've got 6 ounces of this syrup, and it cost me $1.79. We're trying to figure out how much 1 ounce at that price is. So to solve that, I'm going to set up a ratio, and I'm going to set up the ratio of 1.79 per 6 ounces. So this is that. For this one, same thing. This is $2.59 for 12 ounces, and this one is $3.99 per 18 ounces. Now, these are gigantic numbers. I could try to simplify them, or I could just go to my calculator, and then here, rounding to the nearest thousandth, I think I get 0.298 for that one. And all I'm doing is just dividing these in my calculator. Excuse me, 0.216 for that one, and 0.222 for that one. So how we compare these and which one is the best buy is we're looking at how much are these per ounce. So in this case, yes, I get 6 ounces. I'm paying $1.79, but I'm really paying 30 cents per ounce. Where this one I'm only paying 22, and this one I'm also paying 22, but I think this one is going to be the shortest one. So this one is actually the best buy. And so this is something that I do use every once in a while. But like when I'm shopping for, a TV and stuff like that, a lot of times I'm looking at, how many inches is this TV I'm getting, what price am I paying, so I can look to see what price per inch that I'm paying, and then sometimes you'll see that you might get a better deal one place than another. So anyways, it's something I use every once in a while. I do think of unit price a lot. My family's really not couponers, but people that use coupons a lot, this is kind of one area that they use it in. So go ahead and give this one a shot, and let's see what you got. Okay, so if we set up the first one, I think the 12 ounces one, we're having about 15.8 cents. This one's only 11.6, but this one's only 10.8. So our best buy is going to be that bottom one there, okay? So that's where you would use ratios if you're trying to find unit price and stuff like that. Remember, unit price is going to be compared to 1. And that's the easiest way to do it. Because those numbers are different, you can't really compare them to each other. You have to get them all down to the same amount, so that way you can really take a look at what you're comparing. Okay, so what is a proportion? So basically, a proportion is when you set two ratios equal to each other. So for example, 3/4 is equal to 15/20. Is that a proportion? Sure is, and I'll show you how to determine if it is or not. Okay, so here we have two proportions. So we have 7/3 equals 21/12. Decides whether it is true or false. And how we do this is we use something called cross multiplication. So sometimes when I talk to students and I'm like, what's 1/4 times 1/3? They'll be like, oh, use cross multiplication. So here, remember, when we're multiplying fractions, we technically multiply just straight across, right? If I would use cross multiplication, I'm not quite sure what my answer would be, but it wouldn't be 1/12. This, when you have an equal sign in between and you have two fractions or two ratios that you set equal to each other, that's when you do the cross multiplication. So what I mean by cross multiplication is you're going to multiply those two together. So I believe 7 times 12 I think is 84. And then you're going to do 3 times 21. And your question is, which is I think 63, are those equal? If they are equal, then this is a proportion. If they are not equal, then it is not a proportion. So I would say this is not equal. That's a big old false right there. Okay? Let's try this one. I have no clue what 12 times 72 is. I'm going to cheat. So basically I'm multiplying these two, and I get 864. And then I multiply the other two, and I also get 864. So since those are equal, I would say that yes, this is a proportion, and this is a properly set up proportion. So again, cross multiply. If they're equal, it's a proportion. If they're not, it's not a proportion. So go ahead and give this one a shot. Well, actually, oh yeah. Determine whether, wait. I wonder if, yeah, sorry. Okay, so cross multiplying, that's 945. Cross multiplying, that's 930. The cross products are not equal, so the proportion is not a proportion. And then if you try that one too, which you can't see, which I'm probably going to delete, that one is true. Okay? So then let's take us to the next step. So now we want to create a proportion. So basically what that means is we want whatever is over here to equal whatever's over there. Okay, that's the goal. We want a proportion. So how do we get that? Well, we cross multiply. Be careful. X times 24, I read as 24x. Okay, and I'm going to put my equal sign in the middle. And I think that 3 times 16 is 48. Okay, so then what we have to use is our multiplication property of equality, right? Draw a line down the middle. Here's my variable. I think I'm going to divide this side by 24. I'm going to divide that side by 24. So I get that x equals 2. And we're good to go. Okay, so here, we want a proportion, so we want our cross products to equal. And if we plug this in here, let's say we plug in a 2 there, I think we get 2 times 24 is 48, 3 times 16 is 48. Did we create ourselves a proportion? We sure did. So in wanting a proportion, we want our cross products to equal, okay? So go ahead and give this one a shot. Okay. X times 42, I think that's 42x. 35 times 6, no clue, 210 is my guess, yep. So then, divide this side by 42, divide that side by 42, x equals 5, maybe? Yeah. And that's my answer. Hopefully that made sense. So again, we want a proportion, so we want our cross products to equal. Sorry, if I plug in a 5 in here, I think I'm going to get 210 is equal to 210. Did we create our proportion? We sure did. Okay? Now, let's step it up a notch. Okay, same thing. Be careful here. This times that. When I do that first one, I have to make sure that I stick this guy in parentheses. Okay? And then 8 times 5 is 40. So now, what is my first step? I'm going to distribute. Make sure it goes to both. Okay, 8 times x is 8x. 8 times 3 is 24. Now I'm going to use the addition property of inequality. Divide both sides by 8. And that's my answer. And the neat thing is if I plug that in here, 2 plus 3 I think is 5. So I end up with 5/8 is equal to 5/8. Okay, so if you have something more than just a variable up here, remember we want to create that proportion, cross multiply, make sure you put that thing in parentheses, because then you're going to have to distribute, addition property of equality, multiplication property of equality, and we're good to go. Okay? Go ahead and give this one a shot. So again, cross multiply, put this guy in parentheses, right? So I think 5x plus 30 is equal to 4. Subtract 30 from this side. So I get 5x is equal to negative 26. Sorry, I'm going to change this. Oh yeah, this is a weird one. Divide by 5, divide by 5. So I get x is equal to negative 26 over 5. I'm probably not going to change that because I want you guys to at least see that fractions can be your answer. And that is the right answer. It's a weird, funky answer, but it's okay to get fractions. Okay? All right, last example. I need to change this to teacher. Sorry, 10 gallons of diesel fuel costs that much money. How much would 12.5 gallons of the same fuel cost? Okay, so this is taking us back way to the first thing we did today. So this is how much 10 gallons is, but I want to figure out how much 1 gallon is. Or actually, let's use a proportion. Okay, when setting up a proportion, the key here is that we want to make sure that whatever we have over here, so I'm going to say gallons, and then I'm going to say dollars, is the same over here. And that's the biggest thing when setting up a proportion. So we have to make sure that when we set up this proportion that our units are the same. Okay, and that's the biggest thing. So that's where I start. So let's use this 10 gallons costs $39.18. So I'm going to put 10 up here, and I'm going to put $39.18 there. And it says how much would 12 gallons go? So you have to ask yourself, where does gallons go? Well, gallons was on the top here, so I'm going to put gallons there, and it says how much. So I don't know the price. Okay? Then, to solve, you do exactly like you did before. Cross multiply, so I get 10x, and then I have no clue what that is. Calculator's all kind of crazy. I think I get 489.75. Divide this side by 10. Divide this side by 10. So I'm getting x is equal to $48, and we'll call it 96 cents. Okay? So again, when setting up a proportion, I start with the units. So I start with my equal sign, my fractions, start with the units, kind of work your way through that, cross multiply here, multiplication property of equality, and you should be good to go. So let's give this one a shot. Set up my proportion. So this time they did the money on top. It doesn't matter. You can either do the money on top, money on bottom, but whatever you do, so make sure if money's on top here, then money's also on top there. And that's the cost for 12 gallons. Trying to figure out how much 16.5 is. I think you're going to cross multiply. You're going to get that. Divide by 12. You're going to get $68.31.